affects over half of the world's population and leaves 1 in 4 women experiencing severe and debilitating symptoms from migraines to suicidal thoughts. So here at This Morning, we're making it our mission to start an open and frank conversation about the menopause.
Well, we're pleased to welcome GP and menopause specialist Dr Louise Newson, who says it's far more than just hot flushes and who wants to end the stigma around HRT.
Alongside Lisa Snowdon, who wants to highlight the physical and mental impact the menopause has had on her. Thanks, Lisa, for being here. Well done, you. And also, welcome. I think this is a really important conversation that we're just going to begin today, and we are absolutely going to continue. Already, the response to this has been huge. So there is a lot of women out there that have questions that they want to put to you, and it's something that affects half the population, and yet not many people know enough about it. So in its most simplistic form, will you just explain what menopause is and also perimenopause?
Yeah, of course, but actually it affects the other half of the population indirectly as well.
Yeah.
Everyone knows someone who's menopausal. So if you think of the word menopause, meno is menstrual cycle, so our periods. Pause is obviously stop. So it is actually when our periods stop, and officially you have to be a year after your last period. So it's a very weird diagnosis. You can't go to a doctor and have a blood test. If you're still having your periods, then actually what's going to happen is you'll often become perimenopausal, and peri means around the time of the menopause. So a lot of women find that they have menopausal symptoms, still having periods, but they're changing in nature or frequency. And this can occur for a decade or so before periods stop.
Wow.
Most women, their menopause is at the age of 51, in the UK it is, but it means that in their 40s they're often perimenopausal. But 1 in 100 women under the age of 40 have an early menopause. And so that means there are a lot of women in their 20s, 30s who are either menopausal or perimenopausal, and the symptoms can affect us, but also it's when our ovaries stop working, so we have low hormones. So it can cause symptoms, but it also can have health risks, which is a real concern.
So much more, and we were talking to you in the break, and you know, we've got to get everything out that you just said then, because it's extraordinary, so much more than hot flushes, because it affects memory, concentration, depression, causes depression and anxiety. Some women think that they've actually got dementia because it is so severe. How is it so misunderstood? Because you were saying you go through med school and it's just brushed across quickly.
Yeah, I think it's because people sometimes haven't taken a step back and looked at the bigger picture. And a lot of people have thought, well, it's just a natural process, so we all have to go through it like we go through ageing or whatever else. But actually, we're not designed to live without our bodies. If you think oestrogen is so important for every cell function in our body, from the way our white cells fight infection, from the way our heart works, our brain works, as you say. So when we don't have these hormones, it can affect us in so many ways and increases our risk of heart disease, osteoporosis, diabetes, dementia. It's more important because we live for so much longer as well. And also we're more aware of all the impact of these diseases, not just economically, but individually as well. You know, women are giving up their jobs, as you've said. A lot of people have very low moods. I speak to so many women who are in real crisis, actually, with their mental health. And a lot of these women have been misdiagnosed with other symptoms because as healthcare professionals, we often haven't had the right training. So if someone comes and says, I've got palpitations, you'll think about their heart. You won't necessarily think, well, what was your periods like? Have they changed? Has something happened? And so it's really important that every single woman, whatever age, who's seen by a healthcare professional, almost one of the first questions is, are you still having your periods? Do you think any of your symptoms could be due to your hormones? And the more us as women understand our bodies, the more we can make the diagnosis ourselves, and that's really important.
And so HRT, then, let's talk about that, because there's a lot of misinformation around HRT. There's a lot of fear around HRT because there's people have spoken about this link to breast cancer. So let's clear that up.
Yeah, that's really important. So HRT is 3 letters, hormone replacement therapy. When it's given to perimenopausal, it's not replacing, it's just topping up the missing hormones. We're very lucky now in that we have body-identical hormones, exactly the same structure as the hormones we produce ourselves. And so they're given in the NHS, and they just replace the missing hormones. Oestrogen is the most important hormone, and actually we know that women who have oestrogen actually have a lower risk of developing breast cancer, which is, everyone thinks breast cancer. The older type of progestogen that is given with oestrogen if women still have their womb may be associated with a small increased risk of breast cancer, but that risk is lower than the risk a woman has if she's overweight or drinks a couple of glasses of wine. Just to highlight how low that risk is. The newer body-identical types of progesterone have never been shown to be associated with the risk of breast cancer. Any type is associated with a lower risk of dying from breast cancer and, more importantly, a lower risk of developing heart disease and dementia, which is what causes most of us to die as women. So we have to look at the bigger picture, and we also have to think about choice for women. You know, if a woman wants to have her own hormones back, then she should be allowed them because of all the health benefits as well.
The Department of Health in December said they've released their Vision for Women's Health, aims to address decades of gender health inequality, reset the dial on women's health. I mean, they're great words, but right down to prescription level, there's still an issue there.
Yeah, of course there is. And so a lot of times we prescribe the hormones separately. We prescribe oestrogen, progesterone separately. A lot of women need a vaginal oestrogen as well, which works locally for symptoms of vaginal dryness and urinary symptoms. Each one clocks up a prescription charge. So Carolyn Harris, the MP, as you know, has done the most amazing work to change it so people can have one prescription charge, and they also can have a year, which is really important. They don't want a month, and not just for the financial cost, but actually going back and forth, not just for the individual patient, but also for the healthcare professional, the pharmacist. It's increasing workloads. So it hasn't come into play yet, but there's a lot of work. So hopefully by spring that will happen, and that will make a difference. But you know, it should be more. It should be free. Some preparations, actually, especially vaginal oestrogen, should be available over the counter. It's safer than Viagra. You know, we can buy Viagra over the counter.
That's mad.
So it is mad.
Lisa, let's bring you in here now, because it's your 50th birthday on the 23rd of this month. So happy birthday for that coming up. But you were looking back, I think you were about 42, were you, when you first started?
About 8 years ago.
About 8 years ago. So I'm sitting here like a sponge. Like, this is my next phase of life. This is coming to me, and I want to go into this without being fearful. And I think the best way of doing that is to listen to other women, hear the stories, educate myself and learn. So I want to hear your story and what your symptoms were then.
Yeah, I mean, because like you, I was 42. I had no idea. I didn't even know what the perimenopause was. I knew about the menopause-ish, but at school you learn about, you know, your periods, puberty, pregnancy. Never was perimenopause or menopause ever mentioned. So I was completely in the dark. So, and I thought it would happen perhaps many, many years in the future. So I was 42, and I think that when looking back, the first symptoms were this depression and anxiety, this feeling of being completely out of control, and things that I'd usually do every day I couldn't do. It just felt very strange. I couldn't process things. And then it's a bit of a moving target. So then your menstrual cycle starts changing and it becomes really erratic. So some months you just don't have a period. The next few months you don't stop bleeding. And it's so heavy and so debilitating that you cannot leave the house. You can't go to work for fear of just bleeding everywhere. I mean, just awful. And the pain that goes with it. And then you've got the anxiety, the depression, the cycle. And I went to see a gynecologist. It was never mentioned that, could you be perimenopausal? So when I was 42, the doctor prescribed antidepressants. And I took them for about 6 months, but I just knew it wasn't what I needed. And I was also getting these rages out of nowhere, this uncontrollable, over-emotional rages. And my poor partner, George, I mean, he was just like, what is going on?
Well, this is where Louise said, because obviously this centres around the woman in the menopause, but the partner is involved as well, because we've got lots of calls today. You're going to take some calls later on. Lots of calls from people from guys saying, how do I support? How do I support? Because for you, you've mentioned the sort of physical aspect there, of which there are so many and varied things. But what about the mental aspect for you? Because you said, you know, you couldn't ever see a point where it would end.
No, and it was absolutely hideous. And a lot of women do want to not be here anymore. And that's what breaks my heart. Like, women just suffering and not knowing and not recognising yourself. You've got the weight gain, you've got the insecurity, you've got confidence issues. You start, you know, second-guessing whether you're going to be competent enough to go into work. Is your brain going to fail you? The brain fog, the sweats that come on that are really embarrassing. Of course, they are physical as well, those symptoms. But you just feel so lost, so low, and you just don't know what's going on.
So when you got your diagnosis, when you actually went in and finally you were told perimenopausal, how did that feel then? Because you started this by saying, I thought this was something that happened a lot later.
Yeah, I was quite shocked.
Were you?
I was really shocked. I literally had the biggest lump in my throat, and I was just confused, and it was almost like a punch in the stomach because I didn't quite know what that meant, but I knew that it was a big change and that, you know, fertility perhaps was off the... You know, lots of things came into my mind at that moment. And it's just a real wake-up call. And I just wish I would have known more about it because now, you know, I feel fantastic and I am on HRT. You know, it's been an absolute game changer.
How quickly did that help and what effect?
Well, it's a little bit of a moving target and you do have to kind of tweak it, don't you, Louise? It's, you know, you get your prescription and you have to just... you know, up it a little bit and start slowly. But it takes about... Everybody's different. It depends on how depleted your hormones are. For me, it took about a month to kick in. And then you think you've got it under control, and then the symptoms come back and the night sweats. Because I didn't mention that, you're sweating all through the night, you're up every hour peeing, you're shivering after you've sweated, so you're just not sleeping at all. The next morning you feel wretched, then you've got the hot flushes. It's literally a yo-yo of just craziness. So I'm like spritzing my hormones on, and now I'm on testosterone as well, and it's a good balance now, but it does
and
move
has it changed?
around. It has changed. It's been a game changer. I've lost weight, I've got my energy back, I don't ache anymore in the joints, the anxiety's gone, the brain fog, I can talk to you and have a conversation.
That's amazing.
I remember your names, you know, I'd be like, what's Holly. It was just like silly things like that, and you just don't recognise yourself, and that's what's so scary. But yes, I'm back to feeling brilliant.
Well, that is amazing.
And it is HRT.
How hard is it to get that help? Like, if somebody is watching this today and they're thinking, she's just... Everything Lisa's just said then is me. And I've been going backwards and forwards to the GP about other things. Maybe this is what it is. Is it better to go with a list and go, look, I've got all of these symptoms. How do you do it?
Absolutely. The best thing is to fill out a questionnaire, and there's menopause questionnaires on the Menopause charity website, the Balance app, and then you can actually download that and give it to your healthcare professional. And it might not be your GP, it might be a nurse, it might be a pharmacist, it might be a gynaecologist, like you say, and actually say, look, I've got these symptoms and they're new to me. There's nothing else in my life that might be causing them. Can I explore hormones first? And, you know, all the work I do as a clinical doctor is out of the NICE, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence menopause guidance. They came out 6 years ago now, and they show that the majority of women benefit from HRT for symptoms, but also for future health. Sadly, in the UK, about 14% of women take HRT. That is not the majority. But we hear all the time, and we're already hearing from some of the calls, that women are being turned down or they're being given antidepressants. Now, antidepressants, there's no evidence that they help with the low mood associated with the perimenopause or menopause. Of course, they have a role with proper clinical depression. But if a woman has clinical depression and is menopausal, then she can have both antidepressants and HRT. Because the menopause is a hormone deficiency with long-term health risks. Any other hormone deficiency, such as diabetes or hypothyroidism, you give the missing hormone. We need to really wake up and think, why are women not being given or offered HRT, rather than why do they have to beg and plead for it?
And why do they?
Well, I think there's a big injustice. It's absolutely horrendous because it's women. I don't mean to be rude, but if it happened to men, if you said to men, well, you will definitely 100% reach an age where your hormone testosterone will go. You'll probably have to give up work. If you do have sex, which is unlikely, it will be very painful. You won't be able to remember anything, and you'll put on weight and feel dreadful. But there's a treatment, but we'll only give it to a minority of you. It just wouldn't happen, would it?
It wouldn't happen, would it?
What made you want to talk about this?
I just hate the thought of women suffering in silence. I hate the thought of women not recognising themselves, giving up work, breaking up with their partners, having just not wanting to be here anymore, because it is just miserable. And so that's why this is amazing what you're doing, you know, we have to talk about this. You said it affects, like you said, 51% of the global population, but the men in our lives get affected too. Relationships break down, families become, you know, it's so important. The younger generation need to know, the men need to know, people at work need to know. It needs to be talked about. It can't be taboo anymore. And people need to know, like, HRT was demonised for so long. It is safe to take.
Is HRT the silver bullet then for everybody?
Yeah, the majority of women, there's some women who choose not to take it. There are some women who've had, for example, an estrogen receptor positive cancer who wouldn't take it in the first instance, but actually all the evidence, or the majority of evidence, is that even for those women it can be safe. And again, it boils down to choice. You know, a lot of it is individualised, and that's really important for anything we do in medicine. But actually, if women know about any potential risks, they know about any potential benefits, and also they know about uncertainty. So, for example, with breast cancer, we haven't got really robust data, but then it's up to them to take a decision. You know, we decide when we're going to cross the road, we decide if we do any high-risk activities, but actually HRT is very, very low risk because it is just replacing our
hormones. But also, I think you probably suggest that you go to the specialists, go to the charities, go to the proper websites, because there is an enormous amount of unhelpful misinformation.
Absolutely. It's really important if anyone's looking at information that it's evidence-based, because there is really good quality evidence. And sadly, the menopause is now a marketing opportunity for a lot of companies because it affects half the population. So there's some horrific stories, horrific facts about the menopause out there. So it's very important that women and men, everyone has the right knowledge. But it isn't just about hot flushes. You know, if you Google menopause, it will be a grey-haired woman running down the beach, actually. None of us can not, you know, we can't hide behind it. It's going to happen. My youngest patient is 15. She had one natural period and then they stopped. My oldest patient is 93. You will be menopausal until the day you die. So replacing your hormones, you do forever. You don't stop at a certain length of time or a certain age because of how important it is for future health. And, you know, I sometimes wonder, what would the world be like if women were given their own hormones back? How different would it be? It would be incredible, wouldn't it?
Thank you. You will be back. We'll be here with our phone in later answering some of your questions.